What's up fellas, Moon here. Dragonflight Season 3 just kicked off, and the biggest question people playing Arena are asking themselves is, what composition do I want to play? Today, I'm here to break down the composition types, give some sample compositions for each type, and briefly tell you what they do. Whether you're just now giving Arena a shot, or if you're a multi-gladiator looking for a refresher, I'm hoping you can learn something from this video. To get things started, let's talk about the types of Arena compositions there are. While there's a ton of different ways each class and specialization can be paired with each other, Arena compositions can be split up into the four main types, that being Rushdown, Setup, Attrition, and Dampening. Setup compositions are most commonly found in comps that have one melee, one ranged, and one healer. These compositions find their win condition by using crowd control to lock the enemy team down while centering burst damage on their kill target. They lock the enemy down every 30 seconds or so with a setup and make a kill attempt. The objective is to force major cooldowns and CC break trinkets with each setup and severely punish teams who do not rotate their defensive cooldowns well. The healer choice is pretty limited when it comes to setup comps, as diminishing returns matter significantly with these, but we'll touch more on that in a little bit. Rushdown compositions are most common with double melee DPS, and their primary win condition is to combine their windows of burst damage and hold momentum until they can repeat it again. These are large kill windows spanning around 20 seconds or so every 2 minutes, where their kill potential is lethal. If they are unsuccessful in landing a kill, their objective is to utilize momentum from their initial push until their cooldowns reset to where they can try again. You'll notice with Rushdown comps that the healer choice isn't usually as important with this, and you can play most healers with these comps. If you want more of an all-in aggressive approach, play with a Discipline Priest or Restoration Shaman. If you want someone who can keep you alive easier between your momentum swings, pick up a Restoration Druid or Mistweaver Monk. Attrition and Dampening compositions have a similar playstyle, but I split them up because the pacing of the game is drastically different. Attrition compositions attempt to win the game through high sustained damage and pressure. They don't necessarily have large amounts of burst damage, but attrition-based comps can use this high sustained damage to keep the pace of the game in their favor and force unnecessary cooldowns from the enemy team. The trade-off is, however, that attrition-based comps aren't really tanky and can die easily if they get run over. Regarding healer choices, I've seen more momentum-based healers like Discipline Priest and Restoration Shaman for these compositions, but it's possible to have middle-of-the-road healers like Holy Paladin, Holy Priest, and Preservation Evokers heal these types of compositions and do alright. Dampening compositions, on the other hand, are very tanky and try to win the game by playing defensively, keeping the enemies at bay, and waiting until the late game when Dampening, the stacking healing reduction debuff you receive after 5 minutes, kicks into effect. Because they have some of the best defensive play with crowd control, peel potential, and are generally tanky, Dampening compositions don't usually have enough kill pressure to outright drop someone before Dampening actually takes effect. You'll notice that all the examples I have consist of a Restoration Druid, and you could probably slot in a Mistweaver as well for these types of comps. They thrive by sitting back and blasting from a triangle formation while their healer PvE heals. I should have mentioned this sooner, but this video assumes that both teams are playing well and that no severe mistakes are made within the opener of the match. For instance, it totally is possible for a Dampening composition to kill someone in the opener if the enemy team makes a severe blunder. And I should also note, most Arena compositions have multiple win conditions they can use to win the match. Just because I categorize a composition as having a primary win condition doesn't mean that it's only limited to that style of play. For instance, Rogue, Shadow Priest, and Shaman is a composition that is both a setup and an attrition-based composition. Something you'll find with regard to Arena compositions is that a lot of them have weird naming conventions. A lot of compositions are 3-letter acronyms that have the 2 DPS first and the healer last. For instance, Rogue Mage with a Priest Healer is RMP. FPS is Feral Shadow Priest with a Shaman Healer. For classes that start with the same letter, such as Warlock and Warrior, the abbreviation is used. An example would be LSD as Lock and Shaman with a Druid Healer. There's other names of compositions that are more so with how they're themed or were named after who they were played by, such as Jungle Cleave being Feral Druid and Hunter with a Priest Healer, or TSG, Warrior Death Knight Healer, being named after the Super Gosus. The last thing to mention is why certain comps do and don't work. The answer lies within crowd control. In World of Warcraft, there are 7 different types of crowd control: stuns, incapacitates, disorients, roots, knockbacks, silences, and disarms. Because it would be unfair to sit an entire game in a polymorph or fear, the game has diminishing returns within PvP. This means if you're crowd controlled by a specific type of crowd control, let's say an Incapacitate in this instance, the next one that lands on you within an 18-second window will be for half of its duration. If you're hit with another Incapacitate after that, it'll only last a quarter of its duration. Once you're hit with the same crowd control 3 times, you're immune to that school of crowd control for the next 18 seconds. That's why this is important for setup compositions such as RMP to wait for diminishing returns to reset between kill attempts. It's also why, as cool as it sounds, Hunter, Mage, and Shaman would be a terrible composition, as their main form of crowd control is all shared on the Incapacitate school. It'll take some time to learn what classes have abilities on what schools of crowd control to have a deeper understanding of what goes well together, but if you look up a tier list of arena compositions for this patch or the patch previously, the top tiers are great examples of what can work well together. I've also previously provided some examples of frequent compositions that I myself see in Arena. That's it for the basics on arena compositions. If you have a topic in WoW Arena you'd like for me to break down next, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, this is Moon, signing out.